Hey, we are here with the first ride impressions today. I have not rode this bike yet, so super stoked to get out on it. Let's dive into what it is. It's the Scott Patron E Ride. This is the tuned version, so it's their highest end in the US for the year. Factory suspension, Fox 38. It's the Fox Nude T shock it's kind of Scott's proprietary rear shock, which is hidden right here. And then factory Fox transfer post, and then X01 drivetrain with Shimano XT brakes. So super solid build, $89.99. It comes with the new Bosch CX drive unit and a 750 watt-hour battery. So it kind of nails all the key features right away. Pretty dang rad build for the price. Not many bikes out there are coming with that good a spec for the price. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. We'll talk more about it on the trail, so let's just get up there. All right, so we're on the climb. I've actually never used this Bosch motor before, so I'm just figuring out all the settings. They've got turbo, EMTB, Tour Plus, Eco, and off. So they actually have one more mode than I'm used to, because I'm used to the Shimano motor. But man, when you put it in turbo mode, this thing just moves. I'm not even like in a high cadence right now, and it is helping way more than the EP8 would. So pretty dang impressive motor. Okay, like I always do, we are at Eagle Bike Park, dropping down the flow trail. I have, like I said, never rode this bike before. So testing it all out. It feels like it jumps pretty dang good. Almost as good as that Santa Cruz Heckler 29 that I just tested, was able to ride. Yeah, this thing is pretty good feeling. It feels a little bit heavier than the Heckler, but it feels more stable. This bike, I weighed it with pedals, is 54.5 pounds. So it is a few pounds heavier, a couple pounds heavier than that Heckler is. But yeah, man, this bike feels good. I just put my rear sag at like right in the middle of the sag setting that they have marked on the frame. That feels pretty good. I put the rebound one click slower than center, and it's feeling really good. So pretty good feel so far. I always like SRAM shifting on an e-bike, and that's what it has, X01 even. So pretty dang solid. But all right, let's talk some more about the climbing. So of course it's Scott, so it does have the twin lock. And I will say, I just switched it in traction mode, and you can instantly feel like a little bit more efficient. I know it's an e-bike, I know this motor has a ton of power, but you feel quite a bit of an efficiency gain just going to that traction mode. I'm going to full lockout, and honestly, I do not like the feeling of that, so I'm gonna put it back to traction. All right, so I will say, out of all the e-bikes I've rode, this one does climb better than all of them. I think it's mostly due to that traction mode, but I just dropped out of the traction mode and it still feels really good. So I think Scott they always have good climbing bikes. So I think that's just kind of part of the deal when you buy a Scott. And honestly, the value of this bike is absolutely crazy. I know it's $8,000, but, or $89.99, so it's actually $9,000. But for the parts that it comes with, you can hardly even buy a pedal bike for that price. So kudos to Scott for getting this bike out in this price range. They also have a bike that's $79.99, which is like just like the 900. It comes with XT everything, I believe. And then they have one that I think is $64.99. So for the US, that is, there's more options in Europe. So yeah, super impressive climbing bike. I know it's an e-bike, but the motor, super solid. I'm trying to mess up see if I can get the gearing to stop a little bit. That's what the noise is, but man, it's just solid. So overall, climbing on this bike, I mean, best e-bike I've ever climbed on. So there's that. I think it'd be the fastest up just about anything. So let's focus on descents now and move on. All right, here we go, down shake and bake. So see how this thing does on a little bit different terrain. I'm gonna click it down actually into EMTB setting, see what that does. And one worry that I had about this bike were the bars, because it's that one-piece stem bar combo. But I think they're 780 millimeters wide, and they feel wide enough. I usually like wider than that, but I don't know. They feel completely comfortable to me, and the bars themselves are actually pretty dang comfortable. So no complaints right there on that if you're worried about that. Yeah, just this bike is just very planted. I don't know if it's where the battery is or what, but it does feel a little top heavy. I wouldn't say that's the shock, because that's not that heavy. This bike just does feel a little bit heavy on the top. So in the air, I'd say it's definitely not the best jumping bike, but it has some good pop to it. So it's kind of deceiving, I would say. So I'd say it's just well-rounded in that, and yeah, it gets you up in the air, but not the comfiest while you're in the air. So checking out where the rear shock is, it's right in here. There's a little tab that you twist, and then it just pops out and it's up in there. Okay, let's talk about the geometry of this thing real quick. So I'm on a size medium. The reach is 454 millimeters long, and I think it's like point something, it's something right around there. And then the reach is 1231 millimeters and point some extra, but the chainstay is 454 millimeters, so pretty dang long. And its head tube angle, its head tube angle is 65.0, so it's a pretty moderate geometry. Nothing crazy long, nothing crazy slack. That's kind of Scott's thing. They're not into doing super slack and long stuff. All right, we're gonna go down Storm and Mormon here now. More jumps, a little more twisty, turny. So I was just thinking, so far this bike, definitely the best climber, but descending, I just actually made a couple tweaks to the suspension to see if that's gonna help. I went slower on the rebound in the rear, and actually a little firmer in the front. And so far it is feeling a little bit better. So that's one thing. They don't have a like a setup guide, so it's kind of a bummer, but it's all easy stuff. The bike just in the air, it feels like it's taking me forward a little bit if I'm not ready for it. So something to think of if you get this bike, just mess with the suspension a little bit. I think it's already better with just that little bit of tweaking I just did. Let's see how it does on this thing. Yeah, pretty solid. So overall, this bike does have some random noises that I hear every once in a while. Yeah, that didn't sound good. So it's just got some weird noises that is not making me super comfortable. So I'm going to not go off this drop right now and get down to the bottom and check it all out, because it's just making some weird clanking noises that I'm just not trusting. But that could be completely my fault and not the bike's. I have checked the headset multiple times, and so just gonna go through it all, check it out. That clanking might just be the motor. It might have a noise that I'm not used to. I have no idea. But like I said, this is a first ride video. I'm just checking things out and talking about it while I'm going. So let's get back to the top. I'm gonna check this out and then do some more runs. All right, so I just checked everything out, and everything seemed tight and all good, so hopefully it stays together. The headset is already making some noise, just like sitting there turning back and forth. So that is definitely a negative, I would say. Got, I don't know, 5 to 7 miles on the bike, and it's doing that. So that's not the greatest, but also I'm not focused on that anymore, because this bike has still got some really good quality. So like I kind of talked about earlier, it's just very planted through all this stuff. I know I did this trail before, but I changed my suspension since then, and it feels a lot better. Yeah, it's that definitely helped. So definitely, if you get this bike, plan on doing some just a little bit of suspension tweaks, which luckily it's all really easy. Super stoked that Scott puts SRAM drivetrain and Shimano brakes on almost all of their bikes. That's super nice. That's kind of my preferred two things: Shimano brakes, SRAM drivetrain. So super cool. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about the bike, leave them in the comments down below. This bike, I mean, it turns well. You can get over the front, and I think it just actually kind of excels, kind of like Yetis do when you're over the front end of the bike. It's kind of what I've been noticing. Even with that 65-degree head-to angle, I was expecting being over the front would be kind of making it a little bit of a twitchy bike, but it's kind of been the opposite. It makes you be able to push the bike a little more. So let's go over some pros and cons. Pros, actually let's start with cons first, and on a good note. Cons are obviously what I experienced in this video, the noises. That's never fun to have on a brand new bike. They seem to go away now, so I don't know what that was, but be checking it more into depth. And then it's not super lively, but I think that's also a pro because it makes it very stable. So with that, let's just head straight into the pros because there's not too much negatives about it. Pro, the twin lock. I have not been paying attention to it too much and like having to think about what I want to actually press. So that was one of my worries, is I wasn't going to be able to get the dropper easy, but it seems pretty dang simple, and I've not gone for the wrong one yet, so that's nice. And then that traction mode on the climbs. Actually right now I'm in traction mode and it definitely helps. Another pro, I think it's the best e-bike that I've rode for climbing, so that's definitely a pro. Not saying it's the best climbing e-bike out there because I haven't rode them all, but it's got to be pretty dang high up the list.